Hi, and welcome to part two of my series on brain driven weight loss. If you haven't watched it yet, I do strongly recommend you watch part one. Then this video will become even more impactful with that foundational information. But if you are a first time viewer, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Coach John McLernan, and I'm the head coach at Freedom Nutrition Coaching. You know, between myself and my clients, we have lost literally thousands of pounds, and I want to help you become another success story, not just at losing weight, but keeping it off for life. And we do this not through, dieting, strict meal plans or overpriced shakes, crazy workouts, that kind of thing, but rather through my unique approach called brain-driven weight loss. So we left off part one of this series talking about how our brain is wired, and it's wired in such a way that we cannot outperform the limits of our belief system. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to dive deeper and explain how our belief systems form. And so you might be hearing this and thinking, well, yeah, I do have some beliefs, but we don't very often ask this question, how did I get here? And so this is why I want to tackle how our belief systems form. And I want you to understand this isn't just for folks who, feel like they have a belief system holding them back, but quite literally for everybody. Our belief systems, they're formed by our environment and everyone and everything in it. So let me give you an example to dive right in and help to illustrate what I'm sharing here. So in these pictures, you see on the left, these kids are playing soccer and, they're having a good time doing it. Whereas, the little fella on the right here, let's call him Joey, he's upset about something. Let's just say that maybe soccer isn't really his best skill. He's had a bit of a rough day and, the other kids are having fun, but for him, he's usually picked last. And today, maybe the coach just says, hey, look, Joey, you're just not good at soccer. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure you'll be good at other things. And in saying that, the coach isn't trying to be hurtful, maybe even trying to, soothe them a little bit in this situation. Well, then maybe this Joey, he goes, he's on his way home. He's got these feelings of being sad, being frustrated, and maybe feeling a little bit left out of the group. And so, on the way home, mom's coming to pick him up, and she's in a bit of a rush. She's running late, had a tough day at work, and is feeling a little bit frazzled. So when he gets into the car, his head's hanging, and she says, "Oh, what is it now?" And when he says, the coach said I'm not good at soccer, and, maybe she's kind of distracted by the other cars in the parking lot and watch out for kids and, feeling stressed about getting home. And she says, yeah, Joey, you're not that good at soccer. Big deal. There's way bigger things to be worried about, than some dumb sport. And, she's not really paying attention even to her own words. They were just kind of blurted out without really thinking. But what she's done is she's just reinforced with some emotion the story that Joey had in his head. Now, in her mind, she's not even really frustrated with Joey, not really thinking about her words because she had other things going on. And, I'm giving you this hypothetical little story because it's, it's pretty mild. There's no violence, no trauma. And yet this is how little Joey's belief system starts to develop. Coach said he's not good at soccer and mom reinforced it. And so maybe the next day in gym class, what does Joey do? He sits off to the side. He doesn't want to participate. Maybe he's not very good at interacting with the kids and he's starting to feel not very good about himself. So what's happening here? This identity piece of, I'm not good at soccer is being reinforced, and this belief may even start to spill over into other areas of his life. And so our hypothetical little Joey here, his belief system is reinforced over and over again by his actions. And so maybe as he grows up, he never really enjoys being active or playing sports and ends up living a pretty sedentary lifestyle. And again, look, this was a super mild example, and maybe we can even relate to something like this. But, in my work, I've heard it all from, abuse and trauma and terrible things happening to people I work with, especially in the formative years. And so you can imagine if we start to develop a negative or a false belief system from something really benign like this example here, what could potentially happen when you add in some much more difficult experiences? And so the thing is, we rarely take stock of these beliefs, let alone question their validity. So we may not even realize it, but for better or worse, our beliefs are silently at work in our everyday lives. So it starts with a simple message coupled with emotion, big or small, and then coupled with repetition leads to the development of a belief system. And so the next question you might have is, what is a belief system? And at its core, a belief system is really just a set of beliefs about what is right and wrong and what is true and false. And the set of beliefs is kind of like a collection of thoughts and feelings on, tens of thousands of topics or maybe even more. But to better understand the system, we have to understand the beliefs themselves. So let's ask, what are beliefs? And so let's turn to the dictionary here. A belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. So if we look at this, in this definition, a belief is nothing more than our ability to accept something as true. And so as we all know from our childhood beliefs around Santa, imaginary friends, monsters in the closet, something doesn't have to be real for us to believe in it. Real or not, we have the ability to believe in anything we want. We just have to accept the idea as true. So essentially, a belief is something that we tell ourselves over and over to the point that we have great difficulty in accepting any other reality. And beliefs are just thoughts that we keep thinking over and over. And the average person, would you believe, has between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts per day. Wow. And in most cases, these beliefs, they serve us well until a certain point. But after that point, some beliefs become limiting and perhaps even damaging. Now, you might be wondering how much emotion and how many times does a narrative have to be repeated in order to form a belief? We have this, this combination of message plus emotion plus repetition. And truthfully, the unsatisfying answer is it depends. It depends on the person and all of these three factors, So like a very, very direct message from a very important person in your life, couple that with huge emotion like embarrassment or shame, that might only need to be repeated once before it becomes a belief or ingrained in a sense of identity. And this, mind you, this is for all identity, good and bad, things we connect with, positive or negative. Maybe it's a more benign message, something like, oh, Joey, you're so smart, you're clever, you're smart, you're clever, and so on, right? This message, a little bit of positive emotion, oh, that feels good, I'm smart and clever. So you repeat it over and over again, and gradually again, that belief or that sense of identity starts to form. I'm smart, right? And so really at its heart, this is how every single one of our beliefs and identities are being formed. And so I want to share a quote with you. This quote is attributed to St. Francis Xavier, and I believe it was spoken in the context of religion, but it said, "Give me the child till he's 7 years old, and I will give you the man." And the interesting thing is that neuroscience has proved Xavier right. So children's experiences in the first 7 years of life, that's really when the formation of neural networks is governed largely by emotion. That's going to affect their behavior throughout life. So once that belief or identity is created and it becomes the dominant belief, the brain starts taking over and actually starts to organize information to be in congruence with or to match that belief system and that sense of identity. So let me say that again. Once a belief system is formed, and mind you, this is all an unconscious pattern, unconscious behavior. For an unconscious process, once that belief system is formed, the brain picks it up as, something like, I identify as a smart person, or I identify as stupid, or I identify as overweight, or good, or bad, or ugly, or beautiful. Whatever it is, the brain picks that up and starts to organize information to bring you more information that matches that belief system. So let me just explain that again. The brain organizes information that's coming in so that all of your actions, your behaviors, and your thoughts are in congruence with, or they match up with, your belief system. Now, hearing this might sound a little bit disconcerting or like a troubling reality, but the good thing is this is a two-way street here. And, as I shared previously with the definitions, beliefs are, in one sense, we could say they're no more than thoughts we tend to think over and over. And many of these beliefs, maybe they come from our culture, we've been raised with them from birth, or some of them are like familial, they come from our family, we're raised with them. Some are good, healthy beliefs. I can do anything I set my mind to. Failure builds character. But on the other side, many beliefs can be destructive and limiting and even oppressive, could we say. So have you ever caught yourself maybe asking or saying things like, I can't do that. I just don't have the talent, or I don't have the skills, or I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'll never lose the weight. I just wasn't born with the right genetics. So positive beliefs will empower us to do more in our lives. They, in a sense, they give us like freedom and confidence to explore, what life has to offer, to try new things and so on. But negative beliefs, however, they tend to build walls in our lives. They create barriers. They make us want to hide, shy away from opportunities, or shrink in the face of adversity, and really stay close to our comfort zone, even when we don't really want to. So why does this happen? Let's talk about that. So have you ever heard this term, reticular activating system? This is a part of our brain that acts like a filter, in a sense. Physically, it's like this bunch or this bundle of nerves at your brainstem, kind of in the back of your head here. And it's acting like a filter between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. So it's literally filtering millions of pieces of data that your brain is processing like every second. And it only allows what's important and of interest to the conscious mind into its awareness, right? Now, our conscious mind, it would not be able to cope if we didn't have this system in place. We'd not be able to compute all the information that surrounds us on a daily basis. Our brains are actually pretty incredible when you start to understand this about them, right? So now, let me bring this into the real world with an example, and then I'll tie this into our discussion around how beliefs form. So let's say you've decided to buy a new car. Maybe you've even chosen the color. It's going to be a bright yellow, sporty car, right? So you've made that decision, and now it's planted into your subconscious mind. And the next time you're on the road, all you seem to see are the yellow cars. As you're driving along, you notice all of the yellow cars, and you find yourself saying, oh, look, there's another yellow car over there. And you see another one, and so on. Now, because you've now become aware of yellow cars, it's been filtered through this reticular activating system filter. It says this is of interest and important to you. And so it's actually, in a sense, filtering out all the other colors and types of cars as not really important right now. So let me share you another example, from my personal life. So when my wife and I decided that we're ready to start a family, all of a sudden I started to notice, parents, pregnant women, how they interacted with their kids, how they held their babies. And, it's not like there wasn't parents and babies and pregnant women around us before, but because it wasn't relevant to my life prior to that, I had more or less kind of just filtered out, just a passing sort of facet of life. But now that it was becoming relevant and important to me, and I was starting to form strong emotions around this, I was trying to, gather more information about it. I was trying to learn more about it, get a sense of what to expect as I was getting prepared to move into this life-changing experience and kind of transformation of life as I know it. And so, in this sense, your reticular activating system, it exists to filter information. So let me give you one more example here. Think about this when you're driving down the road. There are literally thousands of pieces of information or stimuli that your brain has to process in order for you to be able to drive safely, right? And if it didn't know how to filter out information, stuff that's not important, and pick up on what is important to you, we'd all be essentially debilitated, and driving would be this horrific nightmare. And so we have this ability to filter out all things that are not important when we're taking on a task, that has the potential hazard of, say, driving a vehicle down the highway. And so when you think about that in everyday life, if we didn't have this RAS, or this reticular activating system, we wouldn't be able to function in kind of day-to-day life, because our brain would be so overloaded with the amount of information we're exposed to, especially, in the modern 21st century. Specifically, there's so much information swimming around in us, especially in the digital age, the smartphone age, the 24/7 internet age. Maybe you're balancing in the real world, kids and family and work stress and world events. And there's so much information, and your brain has to have a way to kind of filter through it. That's your reticular activating system. But now here's the interesting question. How does your brain know what information to filter? Well, if you've been following along, you might have guessed correctly that it filters in and it filters out based on your belief system and your sense of identity. So as soon as your belief system and identity are formed, it sends this message to your brain that says, this is important or that is unimportant. I'm going to filter it in or I'm going to filter it out. That's the brain's job, right? So why is this important to you? Because once you've filtered in a belief system that says, for instance, I'm never going to lose weight, the brain will then filter out all the information that wouldn't match that belief system. It wouldn't be congruent with that belief system. So in other words, any evidence that would support the idea that you can lose weight starts to get filtered out. And on the other side, any evidence that supports that you're always going to be overweight is filtered in, because that's the brain's job. Like, it's not trying to screw you over. You, in a sense, instruct your brain as to what is important to you by your belief systems and your identity, right? And then your brain, what it will do is it will turn your attention to, your conscious awareness to, more information that supports that belief you hold. It brings you more information based on what you've taught it that's important to you. So let me pause here for a second. You can see just how dramatically important it is to kind of understand what your belief system is and your identity is, because if we know that the brain's job is then to bring you more information and more evidence to support a belief that you hold, could it be possible, that the reason why you've not been able to get to where you want to is because your brain is actually doing its job. It's bringing you information that supports the beliefs you hold. I'm overweight. I'm unhealthy. I can't do this. This will never work for me. I've tried, and every time I try, it fails. It never sticks. It never works. If I lose it, I'm just going to gain it back again. If these are the types of beliefs that you hold, this identity that you hold, in a sense, you almost have no choice. No matter what you try to do, you're eventually going to be pulled back into matching up with this belief system you hold. So remember that our beliefs and our identity kind of make up the operating system that programs our hardware. If the hardware was like our physical brain structure, our belief system and our sense of identity, they're like the operating system, like the Windows or Android or iOS kind of software programming that runs the brain. And because our brain likes to keep us safe, it's going to prevent us from acting out of alignment with those belief systems. And that's why it's so incredibly important to understand. It's almost like a hamster on a wheel. It's like you keep feeding it more information that reinforces your beliefs, which therefore feeds more information that reinforces your beliefs. And every time you reinforce that belief system, you instruct your brain what to see and say, this is true and this is important. And there, your reticular activating system kind of narrows and narrows and narrows until you could potentially get to this point where you're only receiving information that supports what you believe to be true about yourself, and you're ignoring everything else. Even if it was like an outside observer would see it almost like literally staring you in the face, but you would completely miss it. Okay, so let's go on here. So then let's say you decide to make a change. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like how I'm feeling. I don't like how my clothes fit. You want to make a change, right? I don't want to be like this anymore. But creating change is going to be more difficult than we realize. So let me share a quote here to try and help this make this a little bit clearer. So this Tariq Hamid says, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. And so another way of expressing this is, problems cannot be solved at the same level of awareness that created them. Okay, so that might sound a little bit tricky to grasp, or maybe it feels like we're sort of moving to the realm of woo. So let me bring it back to some of the things that were expressed earlier. Okay, so the formation of our sense of identity and our belief system largely takes place in the unconscious part of our brain, happens without our conscious thought. And so as we've been learning, the vast majority of our brain function actually takes place without our conscious awareness because the reticular activating system filters out so much. So we only focus on specific things. So now, when we say that, let's say, problems can't be solved at the same level of awareness that created them, maybe we could say, here's what we're trying to express. We have to bring our unconscious thoughts, our beliefs, our habits, the behaviors we do without thinking into our conscious awareness if we're going to be able to change them. Now, when we try to solve a problem, our brain is then going to try and predict how likely we are to succeed at solving that problem. It's called a prognosis. And so it's going to use that prediction to determine if it's worth it to expend precious energy on this endeavor. Because our biology is such that our energy, we operate with this famine biology that says energy is finite, I must protect it, I must have energy in order to make sure that I can stay alive. Now, how is your brain going to do that? Well, okay, so first off, let's say in order to solve a problem, we're likely going to require some creativity. And we can think about creativity in this situation here. It's like it's approaching a problem maybe from a different way than we have in the past. But the challenge here is that creativity is difficult. And it happens because our brain is constantly trying to make sense of our world through previous knowledge and experiences, that filter, right? So our mind is constantly defaulting back to what feels safe and familiar, the things we already know. So we're right back into this familiarity or safety of our deeply ingrained beliefs and our sense of identity. And so if you're not where you want to be, if you're not getting the results, let's say, for example, in weight loss, the first place you want to look is really your level of identity and beliefs. And this might sound like, I don't know how you're going to receive that really. I'm thinking, in a lot of my struggle around trying to lose weight, I never heard about it talked like this. And it wasn't until I started to learn about this that so much of my own behavior started to make sense. And so you cannot create permanent transformation in your body and your health without addressing the limiting beliefs that you have been operating under. And that's because this reticular activating system, it's going to filter out information to try to keep you the same, because if it can keep you the same, it's easier to keep you alive. It's some really fundamental biology in play here. So does it feel like we're starting to connect some dots here, right? We have to learn how to work with our brain the way that our brain works, or I could even say brains. And that's really what we're going to dive into in the next video in this series. How do these three brains that we kind of have, how do they affect our efforts to lose weight, our habits and beliefs, and so on?